Well, good morning, everybody. As you're joining, but welcome to our next Calm COVID Convo. This is actually the 12th in our series of convos, and the whole idea is to take all the stress, the hype, and the drama out of the conversations with everything going on around the place for business owners, for business managers, for leaders, with all of the COVID, the coronavirus stuff going on around the place. Of course, we continue to remain sensitive to those businesses and industries still closed out there and, facing very real challenges. But I reckon this week and last week, there was a bit of a pivot in the conversation. There seemed to be a bit of an evolution of the conversation to start looking at the other side of the curve, to start looking at the positives, to start looking at the opportunities on the other side of this. So we've flexed our conversations and we've moved them from support mode to positivities and opportunities. So we're lucky enough last week to have Trent Innes from Xero on a Calm COVID Convo with us. And of course today we welcome Glen Richards. Welcome, Glen.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the invitation, and it should be a fun hour.
Of course, Glen's best known for his being a judge on Shark Tank, Channel 10 Shark Tank, but of course founding managing director of Green Cross as well. He was able to, through the Green Cross group, prove that service businesses can be scaled. So I'm interested to really quiz you on that and get your thoughts as to how that worked. Of course, you also co-founded Pet Balm, linked, but obviously a very different business to a services-based business. And I suppose very different from the small vet practice you originally owned in Townsville, Glen.
Yeah, big journey, and certainly it's one of those things, isn't it? As the journey rolls along, you find you either step up or step away, and I guess the bigger it got, the more exciting it got, and the better the team around me it became. And so anything like that is all about team, and I was very fortunate to find some great people that that joined me on the journey and made sure it was successful.
And here we are now. That your comment there is just as relevant for the businesses that are facing transformation or facing challenges at the moment. We keep talking about what's the shape of this curve going to be. Is it going to be U-shaped? Is it going to be V-shaped? Or what's it going to be? And so it'll be interesting to see how people grab these opportunities that are out there at the moment and what they do within your business. Of course, Glen, you're not involved in Green Cross anymore, are you?
No, moved on March last year. So we had a major event with TPG, San Francisco private equity firm, buying out and taking Green Cross Limited off market. Since then, sorry, I'll get rid of my phone. Since then, I suppose the last 4 or 5 years I've been evolving more into investing, mentoring, and finding good founders and entrepreneurs and businesses that I want to get involved with and supporting them in a scale-up approach, and using a lot of the learnings from my Green Cross days to assist, I guess, the next crop of businesses I'm involved in. And Healthier, we listed 2 years ago. People Infrastructure, listed 3 years ago. I'm chairman of an echocardiography, cardiac science business, Cardio Nexus. I'm chairman of an investor in all these, quite serious when I get involved. I generally put my money in and my time in, and I'm also chairman of Naturo, which has a couple of facets to it, avocado technology and a new milk process. So we're looking at building a milk factory at the moment.
Well, there's a bit of variety in there for you anyway, Glen. Well,
theme, John, is I guess health, allied health, and food technology is sort of where I've been positioned, and they're resilient businesses. But I can tell you, COVID-19 definitely has affected all businesses I'm involved with.
Well, it's a bit of a different sort of, I don't like to use the word crisis, but it's a different it's different to the normal financial or economic crisis, in that the health industry is at the front of this one in so many ways. When I think about our clients, very rarely has there been medical clients forced to close their doors and have hardship during tough times.
Oh, look, absolutely. GFC, when we came through that as a veterinary industry, some impact, growth came off. That was about it. This is, we got to middle of March and ScoMo suddenly turned the lights out. I think it was the right call. Absolutely, we needed to get the health crisis under management before we could deal with the economic crisis. And I think he's made the right call. The reality is, depending on what industry you're in, it's going to be how fast that those lights start coming back up, and not going to just turn on overnight. It's a dimmer switch effect. And the health industry, I was amazed to see elective surgeries go off. So we have nursing agencies in one of our businesses, and they were suddenly unemployed or no work for them because elective surgeries had stopped. A lot of our businesses where parts of it are essential service and needed urgently, and other parts are, I can put that off for a month or two, depending on the affliction. So, it has had an impact, but the reality is, we've in every business aggressively got on the front foot to look at how COVID-19 and pretty severe lockdowns were going to affect. So we did cash flow forecasts based on level 1, level 2, level 3 impacts, and tried to guess, and that's all you can do, is try and guess how badly our revenue would be impacted in the various businesses, and then monitor our weekly revenues, and we still continue to do this on what we thought might happen, what actually did happen versus what our budgets were. So, we had a pretty good handle in most of my businesses on what was going on, and therefore you're adjusting your expense line accordingly and not making too much of a reactive approach. And I still, reinforce that's the approach, that we're trying to guess how our revenues might come back and how fast the lights have been lifted or the lights are turning on, and how fast we can go forward.
Yeah, when you're speaking my language, making sure we're focusing in on the cash flow and the revenue and so forth, Glenn. I know I've been talking a lot about many of these sort of mature businesses having to start to think like a startup again, start to think about their burn rate and their runway and those types of things, because we didn't know how long this was going to last. I should have mentioned, of course, if anyone has any questions for Glenn or myself as we're going through this, please use the Q&A down the bottom there. It's not often you get an opportunity to ask someone like Glenn a question, so feel free to jump on there with any questions that you might have.
But I think that analogy's spot on, because being a Shark Tank panelist and having invested in over 16 startups, it's that same attitude that you need to, the analogy's spot on. You've got to be prepared to pivot, got to be nimble. You've got to operate the business so fiscally tight with this single expense line item, and say, do we really need it? And the number one thing you're trying to preserve is your people, and keep them attached to your business. And look, JobKeeper was really an impressive program that the government have brought in. It definitely has helped pretty much all our businesses. And ethically, that's the point of it. You don't want to stand down, and you don't want to lay off people if you can help it. And the government, instead of sending them down to Centrelink, they're using the ATO and the employer to help support these people through tough times. I think it was a really, really impressive approach, and it has helped us, and means we're now planning what it looks like as the lights start coming up.
Well, it means you can plan because you've still got your team there, can't you? Imagine if you didn't still have your team there ready to go.
Absolutely, and that is your number one asset in a business, is your people. We've spent a lot of time communicating in a number of our businesses. The business I've been really impressed with is Healthier, our podiatry, physio, hand therapy business. So Wes has, right through from pretty much the end of March through April, they were doing daily briefings for the whole team, showing them the real revenue of the whole company against our budget. So keeping them informed about how things were going and what next level of expense control might be, depending on which way things were going to move. That's now dropped back to 2 or 3 briefings a week, I think. It's starting to come out.
It's been a great opportunity for leaders to thrive, isn't it? Like Trent mentioned on Friday as well. He was talking to his team every single day. And I know what we're seeing, the businesses that are doing well, they're the ones that are over-communicating now, and probably communicating a lot more than they were when they were in the physical offices together.
I think so. I think we all share something as leaders and as employees or board members. There is a fear out there, and we've all gone through it. I remember feeling in March, felt like we're waiting for something to happen as we were rolling through. We just had that impending feel of doom, and it was important as leaders that we supported our management teams, and the management teams then supported all our employees to reflect. We know there is fear, we know there is worry, and I heard a beautiful quote the other day off a Vern Harnish Growth Summit was leaders have got to absorb fear and exude hope. And I thought that's spot on.
I like that.
Reflect the fact that your employees are worried, that mental health in the workplace is dead serious and will be a serious problem going forward. And we've got to work as leaders in our organisations to support our people, to check in with them, to ask them if they're okay, and also to promote peer-to-peer mentoring so that employees can talk to each other and make sure they're checking in with each other, because it's seriously unprecedented. I said to my 12-year-old, keep a journal, because you're not, hopefully never in your lifetime will you ever be seeing something like this. And when you're my age, to look back and read your journal to see the fears, the worries, whatever was happening, and to read that as a kid, it just is unprecedented. But as a workforce, we have to check in with them, make sure we got good programs to make them feel okay, and simple stuff too about the safety and security for our employees, our customers in the workplace. And I watched the Southwest Airlines promise. It's a great video on what they're going to do. So if you're a customer getting on a Southwest airline, what they're doing to make sure the airline's going out of their way to make it safe from a virus spread or a COVID-19 spread point of view, from hosing down the plane between flights to spreading people out inside the plane. So each workplace needs to be doing something similar to convince the employee we're doing our best to make it safe for you, and then also communicate to our customers that it is safe to do business with us.
Because uncertainty is such a human thing, isn't it? Really, when you go to the core of that uncertainty, and I see it in business, people just stop. When the individuals behind the business are uncertain, they just stop and they do nothing. So communication strategies like that to get over that uncertainty really comes back to the feelings that the human has in using their services.
Absolutely, and what we do want when we're in a crisis and it is uncertain times is that's when the leaders step up and try and provide certainty, provide vision, and also be open, be transparent that we don't have all the answers, but we're going to work bloody hard on a daily basis to make this business, make sure we survive. And if we'll try things. If they don't work, we'll pivot and try other stuff. But we will be here. Your job is safe, and we'll do our utmost to keep things going.
I'd love to get an idea of what some expert thinks as to how far this has pushed us with our transformation of business and digitalisation of businesses, because there are people and businesses implementing things in weeks that normally that take months to even consider, analyse and make a decision on.
Well, and I love it because that's back to being nimble and entrepreneurial, being able to pivot. Give it a go. If you've got 70% of the facts, get on with it. Or if you've got 50% of the facts, get on with it. Don't overanalyze things. But it's far better to test and fail than not to have a crack. And it was seeing Next DC CEO comment this morning. We've brought forward digitalising the workplace by 5 years.
Yeah.
Big statement. So, they're big investments now. And it's true. We've got to work out how we continue. So with Healthier, we launched our telemedicine platform 6 months early to try and do online consultations. I watched what the Green Cross guys were doing in the vet clinics, zero touch veterinary consults. So, the nurses were picking up the dogs from the car park, taking them in. They do the call between the phone and the consult room in the car and talk to the owner. So all that stuff is when you see it as an opportunity, you can get excited about it rather than just languish. And the change is here. There's a new vision. There's even new customers we can go after. So see the opportunity, you know, where we can spread our business rather than just the suburb we operate in, perhaps with our telemedicine operation at Healthier. We're now operating globally with our physios, our podiatrists, our hand therapists, exercise physiologists, providing services and consults globally rather than just locally. It gets exciting when you think about it.
Oh, I think it's very exciting, but I also love that observation you make about your 12-year-old as well. Like, I've got 12-year-old twins at home, and I've had a similar sort of conversation with them. And I was wondering whether they actually got the significance of this or not. And in sitting down and talking to them, I think they get the significance of this, and it'll be interesting what it means for them in their careers and in their work lives.
Yeah, I think that's the you know, we still got to promote the fact that you have a go. And that's my concern, because the Great Depression, and you talk to my parents, you know, that they were born, my dad was born in 1931. So that there was still the overhang, even though he didn't live through it, the overhang of his parents talking about the Great Depression, which stifles creativity and have a go attitude if your fear is opening your front door and walking outside. So part of what we have to do as leaders is reinforce that you know, let's continue to have a go. Let's open the front door and get outside. But it will change behaviour. You know, we will be aware of physical distancing. We will be aware that we can do a Zoom call rather than getting on a flight to Perth to have a face-to-face meeting for an hour. You know, those things are okay. That's exciting because it's opportunities we're seeing we're going to go after. We can engage with our customers through remote selling a lot more effectively than we have. We can run remote workforces far more effectively than we thought we could. So, you know, some of those things are good. But at the same time, you know, behaviourally, I have no doubt we're all wanting to make sure our personal finance is a little bit fatter and more solid. We want our businesses to have better balance sheets and a little bit more margin of safety. At least, I think, in our lifetimes, that will probably still, the 12-year-old will be thinking that dad did and mum did talk about, you know, the impact of what this has happened, how this has happened, and have a little bit more room for error in personal and business life.
Which is probably not a bad thing, is it? You mentioned before, Glenn, you know, operating Green Cross through the GFC. Do you think coming out of this, it's going to be the same playbook, or do you think it's going to be a different playbook to come out of it?
Oh, this is unprecedented, John. You know, the GFC, it affected segments of the community. This has affected all of us. And so the playbook has definitely changed. The playbook is very much about being nimble and having that entrepreneurial, nimble mindset the whole time, and being willing to adapt, being willing to be resilient, you know. And what is interesting, it probably has reinforced that you're going to seek out new ideas and right throughout your organisation, and not just totally rely on your senior management team. You're going to be pulling out responses and ideas right through your organisation, because, you know, people have brilliant ideas, and we've been probably a little bit bureaucratic in bringing those ideas up and through to influence. So, you know, the Rockefeller habits, you know, I love them, that daily check-in, that weekly review of the business, but absolutely, you know, that 90-day reset that I love, with input from all employees, with input from as many customers as you can, is never more important than as we go forward. And maybe instead of having 90-day resets, just as we're coming through COVID-19, maybe we should be having, you know, the half day or the full day, 30-day reset, just so we can be responding to internal and external factors a little bit faster, a little bit better.
I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about, you know, yes, we've got this digitalisation, which is amazing, and transformation of business that comes from that. But it'll be really interesting how the human element sort of comes back into play. Like, most of our teams already knew each other well before they went remote. As we start to scale and add others into the team, it'll be interesting how you still get that human element within the team. And he concluded by saying something along the lines of, prior to COVID, EQ was a nice to have in the corporate space. After it, it's a must have.
I agree, and even with video conferencing, Zoom meetings, I've been watching things like my mates having beers at 5 o'clock on a Friday with a bunch of guys and chatting about times. We're all over Australia. That same concept into the workplace, having the lunchtime Zoom meeting, so you can just chat and instead of having the hallway and water cooler conversations, perhaps we now got to make sure there's the Zoom conversations that happen out in little breakout rooms, or it's the 3 o'clock Friday barbecue session that happens on Zoom, and we all sit back and have a yarn. Promoting those sort of things is pretty useful.
Yeah. Ethan's got a question on the Q&A here for you, Glen. How do you see existing industries changing due to COVID-19? I know I always talked about after GFC, retail was never going to be the same again, and this is probably another evolution for retail. Are there any other sort of industries, following on from Ethan's question there, that you see materially changing?
Look, I guess where I play actively is health, but I also, with our food technology company, our supply chains, absolutely, I think there's going to be more elements of local manufacturing. There's definitely going to be cross-functional and skilling up of team members so that they can fill different roles if they need to. But where I play in health, being aware of how we create environments. So look at hospital situation. Elective surgeries were shut down, which pretty much shut down hospitals, made private hospitals non-viable. So I'm damn sure that maybe we're going to see things like elective surgeries in certain parts of a hospital, so that infectious diseases and contamination can happen elsewhere, but not shut down a whole workplace. Maybe we've got the same approach. So we're questioning what depth of control we can have over these elements. So, in your table of risks that a board examined for each company, I can tell you the pandemic did not feature very highly last year in any of my conversations. Going forward, we'll be asking now, how do we deal with that? Elements of local supply chain, sourcing happening from Australian companies as well as from overseas. Being able to do telemedicine or video conferencing or consultations virtually, and legally being allowed to do that. Regulations have said we've got to be face-to-face and hands-on. Perhaps now we've got to free that up, where a professional person can still do a really professional job in a virtual world. Psychologists going completely virtual and being able to sit there and, you and I are looking at each other face-to-face. I'm getting enough cues from you, but maybe I've got to learn how to use camera better, stare down the barrel of the camera and probably not point so much. But
this is the exciting times, isn't it? Who knows where some of these industries and some of the, they say you create a crisis and, you get diamonds out of that.
Absolutely. But maybe there'll be a whole new workshop on communicating using Zoom. I mean, Zoom does a great job, but how to use the facility.
You know what, Glen? I saw a webinar invite today, how to effectively use Zoom in your presentations.
There you go. And maybe the next one will be how to effectively run a health consultation. So you're checking in with your patient far more effectively, giving them time to talk. You sit back and listen more. All those skills we'll probably have to adapt and develop as our workplaces change. As I said, remote selling, that it's okay rather than have to be present physically. That you might get to see a lot more customers through doing remote Zoom, and Zoom customers might love it, because rather than that nicety of an hour sitting there that normally takes place, it's now a 20-minute remote selling technique.
Yeah, in some ways it might enable Australian businesses to have more of a global mindset, because, we've always, I think many Australians still see ourselves as an island, and they don't necessarily target from a business perspective providing services overseas. It'd be great to see if this is the way that we can actually export services as well as goods.
Absolutely. If you've been sitting in Italy, England or Spain for the last 2 months, I'm pretty sure some of our consultations with our physios have been through Zoom into those countries. So it's not surprising, John, if if our mindset changes, then we just got to work out how to market and promote ourselves in other countries, and legally, can we do it? That'll be the question. And so perhaps some of our red tape has to free up, and accept that you can consultations and provide services globally quite happily.
Mm. Glen, I always love talking to you and picking your brains on service industry. I mean, you're one of the few people who have been able to truly scale a service industry with the Green Cross experience, and now you're rolling that out in other industries. What would you say is the key to that? Because many say it's hard to scale that service-based business. What's the key that you were able to sort of use, I suppose, at the time to get some scale in services?
I still think right people in the right industry for the right reasons. And I think Green Cross was successful because we had a bunch of vets that were the founders. We deeply respected our frontline people. We were a succession plan model for the veterinary industry that we slowly morphed into, having business associate programs and equity-like structures. And what we've learnt from that, John, is the next iteration that when I got involved with my foot doctor and balanced podiatry, the recognition that it is important to have a local clinician with skin in the game, to be a local partner. So our preferred model in Healthier now with our physios, our hand therapists, our podiatrists, is to be a local partner. So we're a corporate support partner for a local clinician, and we are a joint venture in the ownership of that local clinic. And our job as corporate is to provide all that back-end leverage and support, be it IT platforms, communication platforms, finance, marketing, sales, all that stuff, the pipeline of customers coming through. And our job is to support that local clinician so they can focus then on patient care and looking after their people in their workplace where they operate. And now with digital, expanding our opportunities, our job then is to promote our services globally rather than just locally. So coming on with a new mindset. But the change is, I think, having a local partner, and in helping a local partner, you develop wealth, develop clinical services and support them better has been a real bonus for Healthier.
So it sounds like, front end and back end, you're taking away all the bits that maybe these guys aren't that great at, so they can focus on what they're awesome at in the middle.
Absolutely. But I think the number one thing is when you're not that person in the front line and you're sitting there supporting them, you still have to have empathy and understanding how difficult it is to be a frontline service provider. And so having been a vet in the front line, I get it. I get how emotionally fatigued you can become, how tired from a business point of view you can become when you're a sole operator, which is why these businesses are successful, Healthier, Green Cross, and a bunch of others I'm involved with, that you have to truly respect the frontline team and support them the best way you can, and not just pay lip service.
To get that human element, isn't it?
Fully human element. That they're real people trying to help real patients, and our job is not to get in the way of that, but to work out how best to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. What about from the scaling up sort of perspective? So, there's probably a lot of businesses out there who came into 2020 as this is the year we're going to scale. Do you think that's, obviously they've probably had to put their plans on ice a little bit in the last little while. Do you think they should be going hard, ready for the other side of it? Or do you think it's more of a watch and see for a bit longer?
I think you've got to be wargaming, going fast. But the reality is, as I said, I think it's a dimmer switch being turned on steadily, not just going to snap back on.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, I think you've got to make sure you've got a strong balance sheet. If you're scaling up, and businesses I'm involved with do have other businesses join, so we scale up by acquiring other businesses and having clinicians join us. But there are other services, so I think you just be, it's still back to those disciplines. War game it, put the financial models together. If the lockdown and suddenly everything's normal, what happens? How fast do the lights turn on? Versus let's go a little slower, and nothing's really going to move too fast until about March next year. But, the impact of COVID-19 is 2 to 3 years, without a doubt. So, depending on what industry you're in, is depending on how fast that dimmer switch is getting turned on. But, it's given us an opportunity for a new vision. Maybe some of us with strong balance sheets are going to move a little faster. Those with expertise around developing those digital platforms, expertise around, say, telemedicine, perhaps can move a little faster and gives them a competitive advantage. But, there's only a certain number of customers out there, and how we engage, how we go after those customers, how we best service and support those customers, really going to win over the next couple of years. And it's important that, our businesses are set ready to go after those loyal customers and go after new customers as well.
Yeah. I mean, let's say we ignored the whole COVID thing for the moment, and we're just in a normal sort of scaling up sort of model. Where do you think that the big dangerous points are within a scale up sort of plan? I often talk about life cycle of business and come across different speed bumps, hurdles, and brick walls along the way. Where's that most dangerous part?
Oh, there's two. One,
okay.
Corporate becomes arrogant and gets big and puts big salaries and big egos in there too fast. And
loses a bit of the human touch, maybe.
Yeah, because when you're scaling up, you're building businesses out there in your network, and you're building revenue streams, and then you think it gets busy, it gets a bit chaotic, so you throw more resources at building a corporate back end, and next thing your corporate is burning up all your profits. So that competitive tension, or that tension between effective support and not going too fast, yet being able to provide reasonable support to your frontline teams is pretty important. But always be humble about the people you're supporting. Try and understand and listen, because they're going to provide you with some amazing input that helps you pivot your business and apply your resources. And you only got two things to worry about: your time and money, to apply those resources on the right things. And your customers and your employees will always give you plenty of good signals on where you should be putting that time and money.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's go to a couple of our questions. Okay. What mistakes do you see startups making during the development and scaling stage? I mean, you just probably covered off on some of the scaling stages, but what about in that earlier sort of development stages? Where do you see the mistakes that startups are making?
Well, absolute classic is blind optimism and launching without being fully funded or ready to move. And that's the scary one, when you bump into businesses that had a little bit of cash in the bank, had a lot of passion and enthusiasm, and next thing they're produced 10,000 widgets to sell, or they've invested in a whole bunch of people to help drive the business, and they don't have enough cash. So next thing, they're fully open and exposed. So it's spend time on the planning phase, time on the forecasts and the financial roadmaps, so your funding needs and the milestones you've got to get to before you go out for the next level of funding. And my concern is the number of entrepreneurs that launch and suddenly they're tap dancing because they're running out of cash, which fully expose everything they've done. They're going to have to lay off people. The sharks will circle, not me, but the sharks will circle and come in and take their business off them. And it might have been a wonderful technology or a wonderful business. They've got to get their funding right, their financial roadmap right, and the milestones that they're going to hit to justify more funding.
I don't know about you, Glenn, but I've seen many a startup fail because they're so distracted with always having to raise capital because they didn't get enough at that point in time for their plan, and therefore they're forever fundraising.
So we've just we've raised some money for a new medical device through the Business Development Fund, and we've been going very slow until we've got funds in the bank and going steadily. And one of the other board members had 11 medical device and biotech startups, and he keeps going, mate, whatever happens, go back and get more cash and make sure it's in the bank, on the balance sheet, because that'll give you a 2-year runway, and that time comes around very quickly. So you've got to have plenty of runway, and because then you meet certain milestones, the value of your enterprise goes up and you're raising on higher valuations, which means less dilution to the founders. So it's important to have that financial roadmap, to put the time into the plan, and whatever you think you need, you probably need a lot more cash to start with.
Yeah. Aaron's got a question on here. So do you think there will be more manufacturing back in Australia?
Absolutely. And look, bump into, some of the businesses already manufacturing this country. They're already moving to, higher tech, automation, robotics, all those things. And we'll just see more of that. So but I think part of that part of it will be supported by the fact that Australian companies that need supply chain won't be fully dependent on overseas. They'll start, I think, accepting maybe a higher price for some parts of their supply chain, and it'll be dollar cost averaging. And so they're willing to support to make sure that we carry manufacturing in this country. But, you look at the plastics industry, high tech, we can do that as cheap as China now.
Yeah.
And with good technologies and, as I said, automation and robotics that go hand in hand, why not evolve a manufacturing base for Australia? Labour is always going to be expensive in this country versus places like Vietnam. But, the reality is we offset that through smarter work processes, smarter practices, and, we're innovative.
Maybe a bit more value on being in control of that will be back in the equation.
Absolutely. I think having, not being held over a barrel because your supply chain's from overseas. So some part of your sourcing needs to be onshore.
Got a question on here, Glen, from Amanda, and she's asking about with your growth strategy, and how you sort of joint ventured with your vets, and why you went down that path rather than, say, a franchise model. Is there a fundamental sort of difference in behaviour or philosophy that you think drove that?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of franchising. Franchising really is a funding model, and I guess if you've got a great idea, you want to share in the profits of that local business. If your model is really good, so your brand is strong, your processes and systems support it, your style of business. So for us, that was Green Cross, high quality medicine in high quality facilities. So same philosophies at Healthier now. Franchising is tough because you're only going to get a small percentage of the income of that local franchise. You've got franchisees that are not being rude, but they're high maintenance. They're paying a fee and they want all the services and they want them now. So in a partnership, it's a true partnership. You can walk through the process of how I support you, and maybe, as I said, if your corporate's getting too big, too fast, then it's got to slow down, and you've got to make sure your partners know why you can't provide all the services instantly. So, I think a partnership is more a true reflection on how I like to do business. If you've got some great IP, some great marketing skills, some great business model, I want to be able to share in the front end business profit, as well as support those people as a real business partner and help them create wealth in their local business. I'm not a big fan of franchise.
I suppose one of the other big differences is whose money are you spending, isn't it? Obviously you've got to have the money to be making those acquisitions, which leads on to another question that's on there, which is broadly, what would you say to investors at the moment who are looking at new ventures? What would you be looking for in the current economic environment as an investor?
Well, I guess my place I like playing is health and food, and with a technology link there that gives us a competitive advantage. But I still think, what can you invest in that has potential to scale up globally, and perhaps using technology to assist with that. So we announced in February that we opened an orthotics lab using our 3D printing technologies and our processes, and we're dramatically improving the margin in orthotic labs in Australia. But when we opened in New York, we were amazed at how efficient we were compared to the orthotic labs that operate over there. So, we've taken our IP, we've taken a couple of our team members are over there in New York City at the moment. But it is exciting that, you know, we can play on a global stage. So I look as an investor in businesses that have a really stable earnings platform, so that you've got strength and a strong balance sheet and you've got strength of earnings, then take that strength and now work out how to scale up, not just nationally, but globally, using technologies and IP.
Yeah, good stuff. Graham's got a great question on here. G'day, Graham. How do you maintain empathy for the frontline workers of your business as you scale up and get drawn away into corporate governance?
You know, as a chairman now, I'm so far removed, it's not funny, because I'm chairman of 4 companies. But when I was CEO of Green Cross, Monday and Friday, we were always in the office. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're on the road. So you're on the virtual road these days, using Zoom to plug in and actually just talk, to engage with employees on a one-to-one basis. And over time, they learn to trust you, and they will tell you the shit you need to hear that you're going to go back and work on as a corporate team to improve how you support them in the front line. So I'm a huge fan of face-to-face, but obviously now Zoom or virtual face-to-face, and having proper conversations, authentic conversations based on the fact you really do give a damn about how effective they are in the front line and how can I help you. And, you know, for someone like me who was a vet in the front line for 15 years, I get it. I know how tough it can be being a clinician. So I can go in and have those conversations. You know, Wes, CEO of Healthier, he's an accountant, but he gets it. It took a while to, you know, but you go out and you spend time in the clinics talking to people and having real conversations on the basis, and this is again another, you know, growth faculty or Vern Harnish. What are we doing well? What are we doing badly? What do we got to work on? Keep doing, stop doing, start doing. Keep doing, stop doing, start doing, to make your workplace better for you so you can be more effective. And you can have those conversations. What we've learned now in the last 3 months, it's okay to have those conversations virtually, as well as, you know, when we can open the doors again and travel a lot more, as well as face-to-face.
I've been surprised by our clients that I thought would put up a bit of a brick wall to the idea of delivering work online. And, you know, I had one the other day that I didn't think would be on for it. He goes, "This is more effective than our normal meetings, John." Didn't have your whiteboard, John, but...
Exactly. But, you know, it's empathy. If you've worked the front line, it's easy. If you haven't been in the front line of a business you're the boss of, you need to get out there and spend some time.
Yeah. Jeff's got a question. G'day, Jeff. How do you think the pandemic will reset corporate governance and the responsibilities of directors? Do you think it'll put more things or new things on the agenda, and I suppose continuity plans are the top topic these days?
Well, the number one item on any agenda will be, how are we making our workplaces COVID-19 safe, you know, to make it easier and safer and better for customers and employees to engage with us. That no doubt. But, you know, we dust off that risk register every so often. Maybe we'll be dusting it off a little bit more and doing more war gaming around what if scenarios, and taking, because, you know, often you're dealing with the operational, the strategic, the tactical of what's happening out there right now. No one was thinking about a pandemic that was going to come along and pretty much turn the lights out for a while. So, you know, maybe we'll just slow down a little bit with our board meetings, slow down a little bit with our strategic conversations around, let's spend 3 hours and war game what happens the next time a pandemic comes. What are we doing? How robust are we? Can we move to a working remotely really quickly? Can we set up safer work environments? You know, the sneeze guards that we see right through Woolworths and Coles at the moment. But, you know, those things are here to stay. They're here to stay.
Absolutely. As we start to wrap up, Glenn, I thought we might get you to tell us about your V4P model a little bit. I love this model. Do you want to tell us where that sort of came from, or quickly talk to us about that?
Yeah, look, probably more reflections on what I learned through the Green Cross period of me as a CEO, and those sort of ideas that I now, key learnings that I pass on to businesses that I'm involved with. So, you know, vision, you've got to have a vision, and especially now, you know, employees want to know where we're going, and part of leadership teams is to make sure we have a clear compelling vision on where we're going, the big, hairy, audacious goal, what we're trying to achieve. You've got to spend time on planning. So P for plan. So no matter what happens, a lot of us as entrepreneurs have a small plan and race out and do lots of execution. There's got to be the right tension. I'm a big one on now, and I'm more the execution guy, the action guy. So I've had to learn very much to slow down, get a good team around me to make sure someone's working on the financial roadmap, someone's working on the operational plan and execution, someone's working on the marketing plan. Bring all those pieces together and review them on a regular basis. The daily, the weekly, the monthly, and the 90-day resets on the plan. Dust it off, what's changing, have inputs from the employees and the customers. People, businesses are so people-centric, it's not funny, be it employee or customer-centric, but people-centric. And I'm a big fan of Jim Collins, right people on the right bus, in the right seats, and spend a lot of time top grading and finding the best people out there available that are good team fit, culturally aligned, align with our core values of an organisation as you bring them on, and then hold the organisation accountable to those core values and core ideology. And then platforms, the entrepreneurial community want to race down and get rich quick and retire by 25. Look, platforms, what we've learned from COVID-19, our whole retirement plan just got absolutely hijacked, and we've probably just lost 3 to 5 years on where we thought we would be on our retirement plan and our succession plans. So it's a good time. Slow down, build platforms that are robust, that are resilient, spend money on things like technology platforms and communication platforms that are built to last. Like my analogy is, what happens if you still own that business that you thought you might flog in 5 years, but you still own it in 20 years' time? Like building a house, you're going to spend money on really good quality inputs, such as, if you're building a house, on good tapware, good cabinetry, on good paint product. It's the same with our businesses, that you make quality investment decisions and put quality platforms in place so they're built to last. Whether you own it or you sell it, it's still going to be around in 20 years' time. And then the last one is passion and purpose. You still got to have a purpose for waking up. And COVID-19, it's been tough, and it's just probably reinforced. You've got to have a purpose, and work is important to us. It's got to be meaningful, and it's got to be exciting for us. And it does provide a lot of, physical and mental and physical well-being for us. We simply got to have a purpose, and part of leadership team is to make sure everyone understands why they come to work or why they log on now, and what we hope to achieve as an organisation.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, I love that model, Glen, and I think you could apply that to sort of any business to sort of have a look at where you're at on that, to sort of identify where your weaknesses might be and where you might need to focus some attention.
Absolutely.
Okay, Glen, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. As we wrap up, what do you think, or what would that final piece of advice you'd give to a business owner, a business manager, a business leader out there, and maybe they're sitting there and they're hankering to get back into their business and get going again? What would you say to them at this point in time?
Yeah, I suppose, it's back to wargaming, planning, financial modelling around what happens if the lights come on really quickly, not so quickly, or really slowly, what that means to our cost structures, what that means, how we're going to go out and generate that revenue. But I still come back to the biggest concern for Australian businesses and global businesses is the mental health of our people that work for us.
Yeah.
We've gone through a very traumatic experience. Leaders' job, whether we like it or not, is I'll quote it again, absorb fear, exude hope. And our job is to check in with our people, bring them on the journey, inspire them, put out the new vision on where we're going and how we're going to get there, and remind them why we exist. So, our job as leaders and owners of organisations is to just look after our people. And they're going to be, it's a bit of a PTSD situation. Don't take it lightly. We need to check in with them. A lot of our employees will not need counselling sessions, but they just need to know that you damn well care, and perhaps those counselling sessions may be available if they do need them.
Yeah, Good advice. Good advice. I think I'd say to people, for everyone out there who's thinking about getting back in and getting back into business, also don't overcomplicate things. I'd say just have focus. You know, you talked before about what are you going to stop. I always talk about what we call the three Russian brothers and their cousin. And that's what are you going to do more of? What are you going to do less of? What are you going to get rid of? And then what else are you tossing into the mix? Because it's amazing when you can just, how much during this time we've been able to just get rid of stuff that's just been distracting you or slowing you down. And if we can just get focused, it's amazing how efficient we could be.
I love that. Exactly spot on. That as entrepreneurs, we love to create chaos. Let's just focus. I love what you just said there.
We like squirrels, Glen.
Yeah,
we like squirrels.
Like one or two things. That's all you have to achieve.
Yeah, good stuff. Glen, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Your insights are invaluable for everybody out there, whether you're in a small business or a growing business, a big business, or you're even thinking to get out of business. Your advice there is incredibly valuable for them. Of course, everyone online, we've been keeping all of video recording of all our Calm COVID Convos on our website at businessdepot.com.au. Of course, if you need any support with anything in your business during these times or after these times, please don't hesitate to reach out, whether it be from JobKeeper all the way through to your strategy and goal setting at the other end of this. We'd love to help you out. Again, thank you, Glen. So much appreciated. I know I've got a number of things I need to action there. As always, thank you very much, Glen.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate it and enjoyed the session.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.